podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
You're listening to RAP, the Welsh Regional Rugby Appreciation Podcast.
Hello, welcome to another episode of the RAP Podcast, where three are not particularly happy. One is, yeah. So, but isn't that just summing up Welsh Rugby? So, ladies and gents, how are we doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Hope you're all well.
Yeah, ordered the Christmas turkey this weekend, so Christmas is coming.
Not too bad.
Oh, turkey. Sorry, I'm just there already thinking of what recipe I'm going to use this year. But no, it's not Christmas. It's still October, Hattie. Don't go starting on that. We haven't had Halloween yet. Anyway, so just moving things on because we've got a lot of things to do, including picking our Wales squad for the autumn. What have we got on the news desk, Nick?
Okay, we'll start with the Scarlets, who responded to the second row injury crisis by bringing in two loan players. They brought in Welsh qualified lock Harvey Cookson from Bath and Stormers and former Sale second row Alex Groves, 24. Both of which who played on Saturday in Johannesburg. The Scarlets are confirmed they're now without Max Douglas, who suffered a rib injury against the home game against the Stormers, while Steve Cummins has returned to the Dragons. And they've also announced that Josh McLeod's injury is a bit worse than originally feared, and he's out of contention for Wales this autumn. I think he did in the opening game of the season. So bad luck again to Josh. And then the only other thing I've got is the WRU have confirmed that Hugh Bevan will join the Leicester Tigers at the end of the year as their new head of rugby operations. Also, former Wales internationals, Rhys Patchell, who I think we've spoken about in the pod before, Duncan Jones and Dan Lydiot are joining Steve Tandy's coaching team just for the autumn series. Neil Jenkins, who will continue to have a full-time post with the rugby union as a skills coach, working individually with players as part of their personal development plans throughout the men's games. So, I don't know if you've got any thoughts on any of that news?
Oh, part of the Hugh Bevan thing sort of stinks to me of a bit of a Reading beer out, maybe. And I would suggest the other three coming in is likely because we haven't been able to find anyone else in the short term. I would have thought, especially with all of them, with the exception of Duncan Jones maybe being young in their coaching careers. And I would have thought that there's probably some development element to their positions over the autumn as well for their coaching backgrounds. So, yeah, I hope they make the most of it, and I hope they're good assets to the national team, because we're going to need all the help we can get, I think, moving into this autumn series in order to pick up a win or two.
I think it's good. I think it's good that they've managed to keep a position for Jenks, though, because he has been a constant for Wales, and actually one of the few good things quite often has been our kicking.
Yeah, he's the one I'm surprised about actually being replaced in any fashion. He kind of felt untouchable. For a really long time, he was the one kind of going through every coaching change we ever had. So I was really surprised by that one. But it'll be interesting to see what Patch does.
The only thing I'd add on the Jenks thing there is that if he has been, like, he hasn't been let go, he's just been sort of sideways moved, if you like. It's a sideways move to him to go and work within the pathway, is my understanding. Now, coming into the national team, like, in theory, most of those guys should understand the techniques around goal kicking and punting and whatever else it is he's coaching as the kicking specialist. And maybe it is a good thing that he is upskilling that pathway talent coming through. And I stand to be proven wrong on this, but, during those halcyon days of Welsh rugby back sort of 5 years ago, from 08 to 19, he was part of that. That sort of National Academy setup where he'd go out to Lee Halfpenny and the likes of Dan Bigger and do the one-to-one sessions. So hopefully now he is He is going out to likes of Carwyn, Leggett, Jones, and so on and so forth, and helping them. And for me, that can only be a positive thing. So I personally, I don't think it's a negative. Maybe arguably he's moving into a even more important role.
Yeah, I was going to say I wouldn't say it was necessarily a downgrade or even as necessary. So I said there's one thing we've all agreed on this pod is, we need to start taking the development of new players seriously. And it shouldn't just be, this is, similar to how we talked about the women's game. It shouldn't be a stepping stone. It should be someone who is good for that role and is going to help with the development.
Yep.
So actually, the fact that they put in a senior experienced coach who has a record of helping young players through and improve their skills actually is more positive to me than, say, if they just check Patchley in there with the view of Patchell going up, and giving Patchell a job straight away is kicking the coach. I mean, I'm sure he's going to do a fantastic job of it, but it just still a weird one when they did that. It just makes me think of what they did with Mellon and the back.
Yeah, I just think that from the kicking perspective, it's going to be less about kicking strategy and more about working one-to-one with the place kickers on actual kicking technique. I think. And again, I stand to be proven wrong on that. Obviously, he'll have a say. It's not I got no doubt it'll be a democratic environment in terms of, and everyone will have their say. But I think he's going to be there more for the technical aspect of kicking rather than the tactical element, if you like.
When we come to discuss the Welsh squad and look at possible 10 selected, there's certainly one of those 10s who could do with working with somebody, and maybe even two. I'm sure they'll all improve, but certainly from a place kicking point of view.
Absolutely.
Right, so shall we move on to the events of the weekend? So first up was the East Wales Derby, Cardiff being hosted at Rodney Parade. Game I actually managed to go to myself. It was quite nice. Got to see Jamie and Gareth from the Dragons Lair pod and Simon from Cardiff pod. Also bumped into Wales Online journalist Ben James. Had a good chat there. So 24-17 win. Pretty routine for Cardiff, really. I thought I'll be honest, after about 20 minutes, it looked like they were just taking the piss and weren't actually trying at times. I've not really a lot to say about this. I said this was probably going to be a crap game in the preview last week. It kind of was. Dan, I don't know if you've got anything more detailed to say.
Yeah, I thought it was a poor spectacle as well, if I'm being brutally honest. We asked for I certainly asked for some blood and guts and to turn it into an old school derby where you're going to go out and put a marker down. Let's not forget now that for those that are maybe new to the pod, the landscape of Welsh rugby is that potentially everyone is fighting for their survival and fighting for their jobs. And watching any 30 players on the field at any given time, you wouldn't have known that, to be perfectly honest with you. So I thought it was pretty a boring state of affairs, devoid of any real quality. Cardiff scored 4 tries that, to be perfectly honest, they didn't really have to work for. They kicked their way into the 22 for 3 out of the 4 tries through Dragons penalties and ended up converting from close quarters. As we've spoken about previously on the pod, when teams get in and are close to the line, it's very difficult to stop them. And, to sort of take it back all the way to kick-off, I took my boy down and a couple of his mates, and I got swindled out of 50 quid in the club shop, and we had a bit of food beforehand, and it was all nice. We turned up at the ground, it was filling up, 7,500, good atmosphere inside Rodney Parade to start with. The light show, I thought the surface looked really good. Everything was really positive. And then from the first kick-off, Shane Lewis-Hughes concedes a penalty for a neck roll, kicked deep into the corner, 5 metres out. It's difficult to stop any team from there, really. And that just zapped the atmosphere in the stadium. I think I was over in the Bisley, and that was like a library. Thereafter, I know the terrace carried on, and they had a good go for a little while, but that sort of zapped the life out of the fixture, I think. That sort of first score, and from then on, the Dragons were always fighting, looking to fight back. I mean, when you break the game down into statistics, Actually, the Dragons carried more, 129 to 122 carries. They had more line breaks, 7-5. And they actually conceded less turnovers, 12 to 16 than Cardiff. However, and actually Dragons edge possession, 51 to 49. I thought the attack for me is where the Dragons are struggling a little bit on the whole. We know that there's been a little bit of a lack of physicality there in the past, and some of that's been righted over the signings over preseason. But for me, the attack is shapeless, offered zero penetration whatsoever. They played side to side, and it was just gobbled up by a semi-passive Cardiff defence who sat off and let him play from sort of 15-metre line to 15-metre line. Tinas De Beer had the worst game in a Dragon shirt, actually the worst game that I've seen him play for a long time, if I'm perfectly honest, because I saw him a few times live down at Cardiff and I thought he was very good. To me, it just reeked of someone that was trying a little bit too hard against his old employer, but I thought he didn't have his best game. Certainly out of hand kicking was extremely poor. And the attack was that shapeless that ultimately, when it came down to it, it was like throw the ball to Aaron Wainwright, and we'll see what he can do. And he was top carrier on the night with 14 carries, but at one point they just threw him the ball in the middle of the park, and he had no option but to kick the ball. He was just stood there. There's no way he was expecting it. Just had to punt the ball down the middle of the field. So I, th I actually think the Dragons sort of middle third defense was okay as well. They defended all right actually for periods of time, but the Dragons would like win the ball back. They'd have a turnover penalty, kick the ball out to a line out, and then either couldn't win the line out or the service from the line out was poor. It was just error after error, and unfortunately a timely reminder of where the Dragons are. There were some positives for me. I thought that Harry Beddle turned out particularly well. He was top tackler on the night with 22 tackles, and also top in terms of dominant tackles with 3, and I think he had 2 turnovers as well. So for a guy in his first professional start, I was very impressed with him. He's clearly got a high ceiling. Not a big guy, reminds me a little bit of Neil Back when I saw him running around the field. So, but he is a defensive masterclass. It was on from him on the weekend. Or Friday night, should I say, and I got no doubt there's more to come. And for me, that's sort of where set piece was okay. At scrum time, losing Rob Hunt wasn't ideal, because I thought actually when Rob Hunt was on the field, he scrummaged well and he carried well, got over the gain line a couple of times, which ultimately led to the Dragons' first try. But I think we've lost him to a HIA, and I don't know what else I can say really. We managed to get a losing bonus point out of it at the end. But the Dragons didn't come alive until 70 minutes. Kai Evans come onto the field. Tinas De Beer come off, and Angus went to fly off. He had a lovely break off a kick off. Kicked the ball away, unfortunately, rather than retaining it. And I just think we lack ambition in attack. I think the rest of the game set piece was okay. But the rest of it around the attack, and I've been hesitant to, single out coaching and stuff like that. But it for me it reeked on Friday night that Cardiff outcoached the Dragons rather than outplayed them really, because the stats would say that actually it was pretty close in terms of carries, territory, possession, so on and so forth. But I think they were 100%. You look at Cardiff's attack compared to the Dragons, it's night and day. Shape on shape, double and triple stack runners in the back line, pullbacks from the forwards, to runners out in the back line, causing 1v1s and so on and so forth. And I just thought they were much better in attack, and no doubt deserved their win. I don't know what anyone else thought.
And going back to some of the positives, I mean, yeah, the terrace was pretty good. It was nice to hear Gary shouting and booing all the. It was quite funny. I mean, I think for me, the moment I knew Cardiff was with them was when they were walking back in after the warm-ups, and on the terrace they were all giving them boos and jeers. The amount of boo for Tame Basham, I tip my hat to that. That's perfect. That to Cersei's Bullman is real rugby values. Booing a player who's left your team to your local rival. But all the Cardiff players just looked completely unfussed by it. And I think at that point I just went, well, we've won this. Like it's just clear that the crowd aren't going to get under their skin today. I thought Alex Mann. I mean, we talk about wanting a bit of dog at 6 and think. I thought he was everywhere, chasing things, winning turnovers, making a tackle, getting up and doing the counter drive. Right, yes, he had that absolutely god awful front straight into touch. But I think that was when
funny,
we were already well up, and I think it was just any silly buggers. Yeah, I thought Dragons did marshal us quite well. I do think a big part of that though is we just seemed to try and whip it wide straight away. I think we didn't really try to work. We didn't try to earn that with anything. So I think the only time I saw like an inside ball was in the lead up to the Southworth try, and again Alex Mann. I think it's one of the last things he does on the pitch. They come off a line out, and he just inside ball. I can't remember who was the inside man. Made 10 yards. And it was just simple. And I think the reason why Bowen and Adams were so quiet is Dragons were so quick to drift. And I switched from the sort of the Hazel Snap, like the terrace, that terrace to the North Terrace, looking at the post. And you could just see the defence were just tracking back and forth with the ball. And I thought, if Cardiff could have made that a lot uglier if they went a bit more direct.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And we could have done with a couple of more people off Tom Bowen's shoulder, because when he was going on these runs and he was arcing, basically running halfway across the pitch, he was pulling in 3-4 people. Again, I thought Harry Bevel was excellent. He did an awful lot to stem the tide back then. So, it's 16 points from 20 for Cardiff, which I could bit your hand off for at the start of the season.
Yeah, and I agree, and I just thought that what I was also disappointed with is that, like I said at the start, I don't think that Cardiff had to work particularly hard for 3 out of the 4 tries. It was just penalty concession into the corner, pick and go or roll in more, right? Whereas the Dragons actually had to work much harder for these. Cardiff discipline in the right areas was much better. The Dragons tend to concede a lot of penalties around their own 10-metre line that ends up, if you're conceding a penalty in their 22, okay, the worst you got is a sort of halfway, line up to defend. The chance are they're going to box kick it back to you, right? Not the end of the world. But as soon as you concede a penalty anywhere near your own 10-metre line, you're straight back in the corner. It's really hard to get out. Really hard to get out these days without conceding points, because the referee just will ping you for offsides and all sorts of stuff, because it's panic stations close to the line. But I do feel a little bit sorry for the boys, if I'm perfectly honest, because I do think we're undergunned in the back line in terms of coaching and patterns of play, just the attack in general. It looked I couldn't tell you what our identity is, if I'm honest. I couldn't do that at the moment. And I think we need a couple of changes for next week, just to freshen things up a little bit. And if Friday, was a must-win game, then this Saturday is even more of a must-win game.
Just a shout out to Lupi Falatau. Been out a few months again. I thought, he's the best number 8 Wales have ever had.
Yeah, as far as best player.
Yeah, he's right up there, isn't he? But what he does, and I was impressed with, is like the nuts and bolts, the basics of it, everything. When was the last time you saw him make an error?
Yeah.
Just everything he does is good. Off the back of the scrum, he was good and powerful. He's got good hands, feet before contact. You watch his work on the floor, long present, makes the ball speed quicker. Just everything he does is just oozes quality. And, if I were Cardiff, I'd make sure that I were rotating him sort of in and out for the must-win games. Like the Welsh derbies and all these other little bits and pieces, because he's a big game player.
I'll be honest, I kind of expect him to go the same way we ended up with Nick Williams at the end, where he basically only did home games and derbies.
Yeah, if I was Cardiff, I'd be okay with that. The other little shout out for me, I think, was to Niall Armstrong when he came on. I thought he had a little bit of zip to the Dragons, so I think there's some genuine selection queries ahead of this week's game against the Ospreys. And I listened to the Dragons there this morning. The boys obviously talking about the coaching setup and so on and so forth. And I get that. I think, unfortunately, I don't know where the change is right at the moment, because who in their right mind would want to come and step into this, especially when the future of the club or rugby in the Gwent area is is at such risk. It's not exactly job security, is it?
And so from that sour note to an even sour note, we move on to the pointless start of the Scarlets. Screen cap here for Hattie. Losing to the Lions away in Joburg. I've watched this game. I know Scarlets did actually score some points this time, which is infinite improvement on last week.
And do you know what? We scored more than Leinster did this week.
Well, that's all you can ask for.
That's all we can ask for. But it was bad. It was honestly borderline unwatchable. I have to be honest, I've kind of removed a lot of that game from my brain because I just don't want to think about how painful it was. But I did kind of write down some notes during it, and the absolute standout things for me was how poor our back three were in the air. So they were just targeted for it because they were so poor. Nicholas in particular had a terrible game. It was just not his day at the office. And there was just no leadership again, which I said last week. There was no leadership. Johnny Williams, for some unknown reason, was picked as captain again. I don't know how you can go out in your first game ever as captain, put it on a performance like that, and then get picked the following week as captain. I don't understand that personally. And he was just anonymous apart from when he did something terrible. He had an absolute shocker. The only good things, I think Archie was incredible. I think he was really, really good. He still looks about 12. But I think he was pretty good at 9. And then Jared Taylor at 6 he was pretty much the only person apart from Archie who actually looked like he wanted to be there, which is ironic because he is actually South African, so he probably did want to be there. But yeah, it was, to be honest, if we can move on as quickly as possible, because it was painful. And I feel like that's just going to be a rolling theme throughout the rest of this season. Is that was painful and let's move on.
If it's any consolation, yes, it's shit now, but guarantee Scarlets will still somehow make the playoff because they'll end up pulling it all together during the Christmas derbies and have an excellent run at the end.
This is it.
Because that's what they do.
They do this to me every year where I have weeks of pain and then we somehow do something slightly magical. We will lose a derby game to the Dragons because that seems to happen every year and I don't know why. Usually somebody gets a red card and then we go on a run of games where we barely win and then we drop 1 or 2 in the last couple of weeks and then make the playoffs by coming 8th. And then obviously lose in the first round. That's what I'm expecting at this point. I know that Simon, what's his face, has said he put on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, that change was coming. And I'm assuming that is a nod to the coaching staff. But like Dan said, who's going to walk in at this point when you don't know, you don't know if you've got a job at the end of the season? Yeah. I think, to be honest, one of our biggest problem at the moment is this lack of leadership on the pitch. And it shouldn't just be one person as captain. It should be a leadership group, and there just isn't anybody. Our backline is so young. Johnny Williams is probably one of the older ones in that group, along with Nichols. And it's just poor. Nobody's really putting their hand up. Costello has a couple of times, and I know he stepped in as captain when Johnny Williams went off the other week. And I actually think he did a far better job. But he's going to be, I'm assuming he'll be away with Wales camp for a while. So is that really that helpful to have him step up?
There was one piece of good news, very good news, and that was Blair Murray's hair, which I thought was much better. So you obviously listened to last week's pod.
Yeah. I mean, he's gone for a strange mullet sort of thing where he hasn't fully committed to the mullet, but the sides are a little bit shaved. But at least it wasn't the braids, and I think that's why we actually scored some points this week.
There you go. So if he tidies up the Barnet fully, you will win next week.
Do you know what? Maybe he needs a full mullet and just channel the power of the mullet, and we're ahead.
For me, on the Scarlets, just very quickly, I think that the European Cup campaign needs to be thought very closely about because, but I just think with the squad depth, you can't compete on both fronts. And at the
No.
minute, you're rock bottom of the URC, and the chance of you getting out of any European Cup group are very slim. So do you just go, well, we send a bin juice to these fixtures and see what happens and give
So
them experience?
the worrying thing about sending our bin juice to those types of games is that our biggest depth issue is in our forwards. And do you really want to send like our lowest rated forwards, our barely professional forwards out to play against French teams to go against Northampton?
Oh, it's a massive issue.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. Massive issue.
And
But
this is where, and I think all four of the Welsh regions had that, where our squad size is just too small
absolutely.
to compete in two separate competitions.
I think it's a little bit more than size, I know, but I also think it's about the quality of the players. No disrespect, but for all the teams, once you get to third and fourth choice centre or third and fourth choice second row, you really are. The team quality of player is considerably less than the first two or even three.
Yeah,
I mean, the
I
same
agree.
we keep saying with the budgets, isn't it? Is that you don't necessarily see it in that first 23. It's that second, third layer of player when your first choice players right. That's where these budgets squeeze you. I mean, Scarlets did really well last season because for the most part they kept their first choice 23 together. There was one or you had the one or two injuries, but they weren't like. I mean, certainly what they've got now, or what Dragons and Ospreys had last season. Cardiff to back three to a certain extent, but not. We were able to cope. One thing I do want to know is, do you think it's purely a personnel thing, or do you think coaching as well is an issue at Scarlets? Because they seem to keep having very similar problems all the time.
Yeah, I think that there is a coaching issue. I think especially with our forwards, I think there's definitely something not right. Um, it just seems to be, I think when you have a leadership issue to the extent that the Scarlets have at the moment, I think coaching does come into it because yes, the players themselves need to organise it, but there needs to be some sort of kick up the backside from coaching to identify it, and to identify who the leaders are. And they don't seem to be able to do that. They don't seem to be able to work out who the right combinations are. They can't seem to get any kind of when it comes to defending a line out, for example, like it's just poor. As you said, like we're having the same issues over and over and over again. And it's just really frustrating to watch. And we're rotating in certain aspects and we're not rotating in others. And we have this habit, we did it last year and it paid off, where we signed sort of a crop of young backs who came from nowhere. And at least two of them ended up playing for Wales that year. That's great, but you can't rely on signing nobodies and hoping that they're going to produce magic within 2 months. It's unlikely to happen. And I know we don't have the money particularly, but why have we signed, like Jake Ball, we've signed him and he's not played yet. I'm assuming he's coming in on a relatively larger budget than somebody else. And we're just having the same issues over and over again by just assuming that madness is going to pay off.
In fairness, Jake Ball has played once, but I think he got injured basically straight away.
I don't think he has. I think he pulled out before the game actually happened.
No, I definitely saw the beard. So I went to have a look and see how much he'd bulk it, and there's a lot of comments about who's a bit more athletic looking now.
It might. Oh yeah, it might have been in the first game. Yeah.
I can fully understand the Ball signing, though, having to try and replace what's the name, Alex? The Scottish lad, Alex Craig, is it? Yeah, Alex Craig, who's gone back to Scotland.
I get it, but we're thinking of Jake Ball like 2019, not Jake Ball took a year off and played God knows how many years in Japan.
Yeah, and I agree, and I just think that it's a sign of the times, really. Whereas Jake Ball
Yeah.
probably is a comforting thing for him to come back. Maybe they're willing to pay him. I would have thought, Whereas anyone else you'd want to fill that gap, where do you get them from? How do you give them job security? How can you tell them they're going to have a 2, 3, 4 year contract, whatever it is, when who knows what's going to happen? Why would you come? Why would you come?
I also think if you're going to sign a second row that's in their sort of mid-30s that hasn't played much recently, you're going to assume that they're probably going to get injured. I think that goes without saying. I don't know. I just don't think that the signing was thought through. I think yes, you're right. We needed somebody as a replacement, but I think they were thinking with their hearts a little bit and not with their brains.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I've said it just seems to be going bad for worse than this. I'm trying to find links and trying to stay positive, but it's not working.
We're playing
we're just
badly. It's all bad, Harley. It's all bad.
We might get
it's
more
not all
viewers.
bad. Cardiff were at least meh. Okay, supposed to be actively bad. Right, we'll move on to the final game of the weekend. Then we'll try and whiz through previews. Ospreys hosted Glasgow, from former URC champions from the pre-season before last. I mean, had a quick look at the stats and the possession. Considering you had only a third of possession, the fact that you made almost the same number of meters as Glasgow says something, and it also means I'm not surprised you took a bit of a shellacking.
Yeah, as anticipated, Glasgow gave them a thorough test, and unfortunately, one they failed. Ospreys were in the game for 50 minutes, and you could argue maybe the scoreline flattered the away team a little bit, but they were most definitely the better team. And I didn't see anything on the evening to make me think they're not going to finish in the top four. Glasgow were physical, clinical. They've got a good platform from their scrum and their line out. Their driving maul is still a real weapon. But what they also do, they have able to test teams out wide too and keep a possession. So they are a good team. Some of our tries we conceded, particularly Dobie's second try, was just caused by poor defence. The gap was massive. So that was very disappointing. I do think the late changes to the team, and in particular to Harry Deeves and Kieran Williams not playing, two of the players who perhaps epitomise the best of what the Ospreys are about, were crucial. Those who came in weren't awful, but there was a drop-off. And as I alluded to before, I think the bigger issue then was when the rest of the bench came on. And when the away team were very much looking for, turning their pressure into points, and which they did. So to concede 6 tries at home on a wettish night is not great at all. Our kicking game was okay, but we didn't win a ball, I don't think, in the air. So it wasn't the case the kicks were too long, just that they were very good defending them. So hats off to them. Trying to take some positives. Well, I suppose we played 3 of what I think would be the top 4 teams this season already. So, but it's such a shame because in my head I sort of thought we might lose, but never by so many. And it was a shame because there was a decent crowd there and a very good atmosphere in Regent, even when we were losing. So, that was a plus. But it's a shame they couldn't give more to the fans who turned up to make them want to come back to the next home game.
There was no bouncy castle this week either, which I thought was a shame.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
That's why you lost, see.
Yeah, you needed the bouncy castle. It worked the week before. That's what you needed.
I thought the Ospreys rather would pip it this week. I know that's where I went for. I thought the Ospreys had started well this season, shown enough out in South Africa to pick up some sort of result and to come away with nothing. I think is disappointing for him. I think you hit the nail on the head. As soon as you have to go to the bench, that's where things start to fall away. Deeves is a massive loss. Having to play Morgan Morse there. For me, he's not number 7.
No, but I don't think he had a bad game at 7. I think he just doesn't. He's just not a 7. But I don't think he had a bad game.
Yeah, and I'd agree with that. He's a very talented rugby player, and we'll get on to the Wales squad later on. But you look at it: Ratty, Moriarty, Morse in the back row. The balance is a little bit off, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And the one thing I thought they struggled with, the Ospreys, was the fact that Glasgow are very good at putting two in a collision. And it slows your ball. They're that good at it. It slows your ball down a lot. And when you're struggling to win collisions on the gain line, especially 2v1, it turns a sort of 2-3 second ruck into a 7 second ruck. Defense is set and it shuts you down. So, yeah, it was at half time. I thought, oh, here we go. The Ospreys, we're going to pick something up from this. But ultimately, that sort of quality from the likes of Ferguson, Hastings, Tui Pilotu, Rowe, McDowell, Stein. When you reel off these names, international after international, it's a golden generation at the minute of Scottish talent, I suppose, even though they couldn't win a raffle, let alone the Six Nations. But, it's full of lions and all the rest of it. So maybe it's just a sign of the times.
I think Tuipulotu was like, he was obviously used to watching international rugby, used to watching Tuipulotu being one of the best centres in the world. You watch him with Scotland and you're like, oh yeah, he's a good player. And sometimes he stands out and you're like, watching him in that game, I was like, yeah, wow. Like he was just so much better than everybody else. And every time he got his hand on the ball, it was magic. And even when he didn't have the ball, sometimes he was still excellent. So yeah, when you're coming up against a player like that, it's very, very difficult to stop him. Especially
Yeah, it
when
did.
you sorry, Harry.
I got to be honest though that I got the URC table in front of me now. We've played what 16 games, or not quite 15 games because the Scarlets had a game cancelled. But between us, we've won four fixtures.
And
I
three
got to
of them were
be
Cardiff.
yeah, three.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, but we're in a weird way. I never thought I'd say this. We're lucky that they have won those games because otherwise we'd be staring down the barrel of the bottom four being all Welsh teams. I was really hoping for more. I think with this being even though the budget constraints are the same, the squad depth is still the same. I was hoping for that. Um, come on then, that Welsh never say die attitude, that hard working, that gritty determination to stand up for what you believe in, and just Welshness, I suppose, because as a nation, I don't think we've ever gone away. But I just feel that we're sort of fluttering into the sort of the shadows a little bit. And I hope we can turn it around quickly because it just fuels the fire for those people that want to bin teams off. Um, and I don't like it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's enough of dwelling on the past now. So we look ahead to the future. We're going to start off with Sharks hosting Scarlets at 3 o'clock UK time on Saturday. Hattie, any changes? Sharks have proven with their loss to Ulster that they are still the same flaky Sharks that we know and love.
Hmm.
Any hope for you?
If we play like we did last week, no. Um, I, I have to be like we're just shockingly bad. Obviously Jake Ball, etc. went down, and I know I've just kind of slagged off his signing, but if he doesn't play, there is no heft in that second row. And I think we need a little bit of an old head going into the pack, somebody that is used to winning um, for Wales and with the Scarlets, and kind of putting a bit of ballast back in. Um, if Johnny Williams is captain again, I think I will throw a strop. Because it is the worst captaincy decision. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. Um, I really don't. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. He has no background in captaincy. He has no overwhelming qualities that I would say would make him a good captain. And he's not a good captain. Um, it probably sounds harsh, but if you've watched him try and captain, you'd understand. Quite frankly, I don't even know why he's in the starting 15 at the moment because he's not playing well. Um, so yeah, I'm not hoping for anything. Because if I have even a glimmer of hope, I will be sorely disappointed. But yeah, if Johnny Williams is captain again, I will, quite frankly, I'll probably cry.
Right, so we'll skip over the derby for now because we'll do that last as per tradition. So ending the weekend, as always, is Cardiff versus Edinburgh at 7:45 on Saturday. I think this is the S4C game. Don't hold it to me. It might be the derby, but it's typically in that sort of 7:45 slot they seem to show live, and then another game afterwards. So Cardiff riding high. We don't have our usual issue at the end of this block where all our best players are in Wales camp. I think basically everyone came through unscathed, which is quite good. Edinburgh have been, their away form hasn't been good, and they've lost both their away games in, quite narrowly to Munster and Zebra. But then they absolutely obliterated Benetton last week. So I generally do not know what's happened. But we have struggled against Edinburgh and their physicality in the past. But I'm hoping the lessons we learned again up in Munster will help keep us through and a packed count Farms Park crowd. Also to remind everyone that is a double header as the Rags will be playing Pontypool, and it'd be nice to get to a beat it. Always nice to beat a Gwent side. Yeah, other than that, I said it's going to be quite. I said it'll be interesting if we stick with Beetham at 13, or if that was just rotation for Millard. So I do think it's something. It did seem that we're missing something there. And yeah, let's see who Edinburgh send up, because I think that they might actually lose some players to the Scotland squad, because I think they're going a bit earlier, because I think they might have their international in that following week, where for once we haven't picked a game. I genuinely thought we were going to have 5 when I realised that week was going to be a bye week. So that's that one, and then we move on to the Gwent derbies. So Dan, as Dragons are hosting it, do you want to go first for this one?
Yeah, sure. I think, traditionally over the last couple of years, I think the Ospreys have found it a tough place to go. Obviously it was the one and only league win for the Dragons last year at the start of the season. So history, unlike the Cardiff fixture, would be in the Dragons' favour on this occasion. Unfortunately, I think it's very much going to come down to personnel and what personnel the Dragons can put on the field this week. If the likes of Wyn Jones, Coughlin, Rob Hunt went off, my understanding was it was HIA related. So if he wasn't allowed back on the field after failing a HIA, he'd be on some sort of stand-down protocol, is my understanding. I'm happy to be corrected on that. But Rob Hunt would be a massive loss to the Dragons, personally, because traditionally the Ospreys have always had a fairly strong set piece. I think we'd also struggle behind. Playing 2 12s for me on Friday night didn't work, in Harry Ackerman and an Iron Owen, and I would push Finney and Nisi, I think, into 13 with the injury that we've got to Paya in the centre. I think I'd also rotate Angus O'Brien out, and I would personally give Hugh Anderson a run at fullback, because if anyone can create something from nothing, it would be him. He is definitely a point of difference for the Dragons. And I'd retain the likes of Beddle. So I think it's going to come down to personnel. We 100%. We're already missing the likes of Levi Douglas being able to come off the bench, play here in midfield. And if Rob Hunt's out, we'll miss his physicality. Just for being able to punch holes and put some shots on people and to be able to get over the gain line. The lesser spotted Solomone Funaki was seen playing for Pontypool on the weekend, but lasted a very small amount of time after coming off the bench. Yeah, 5 minutes before he had a yellow card, and that was the end of his night. But the one thing I did notice from the pictures that I've seen in relation to that is how heavily his knees strapped. So how much, if ever, game time we get out of Funaki is, having him in the side would make a difference. I think so. Based on his player profile, having the likes of Hunt, Levi Douglas, Funaki, Inisi, Paya, those type of guys weighing right down the spine of the team. All of a sudden, you got some gain line, and unfortunately, it's just the way the cookie's crumbling for the Dragons at the moment. But yeah, history's in our favour. If I'm honest, I'm not overwhelmingly excited about it. How you're going to get another 7.5 or 8,000 people down for the game after the performance on the weekend. I don't know, but I hope the Dragons faithful do come out and support the boys, and hopefully we'll get a performance. But for me, it's all going to come down to what sort of personnel we can put on the field. If we've got to make wholesale changes, then we'll come unstuck.
It's
Nick,
pretty much a
Jim?
similar story for us. I think we could do with a bit of fresh blood to add a bit of precision and energy. I think there's a likelihood from what we saw pre-match last week that Ryan Smith is very close to being available, and he's an experienced player, and would probably fill that role, which we have missed a little bit, of a really good, proficient line-out forward since the loss of Adam Beard. So not putting too much pressure on him in his first game, and his first game at Rodney Parade, where, as you say, I think we've won once since the start of the URC. And Jack Morgan, I think Jack Morgan will add anything to any team. So I think there's every likelihood they'll both feature, probably in the starting 15 as well. They might choose to rest Dewi Lake. He's had a lot of game time. He's put his body on the line as he always does. And maybe Ratty too. But on the whole, we're okay-ish to cover those positions they play. I think if we can get the upper hand up front, and Keith is back as well, maybe Hardy and Giles too, it should be just enough for once to come out on top. But I'm not expecting a brilliant game of rugby again. And that ultimately, for both teams, it's the result that matters. If it's 15, 12, I don't think either coach is going to be that unhappy.
No, I'd agree with that assessment, Nick. And you're talking about open side flankers. We yet to see Thomas Young in a Dragon shirt. So, go
He
on.
was taking a full part in that warm-up and was looking very sharp. So I think it looks like he is going to be ready for next week. I don't know. I don't have feelings inside line, but he did look very good during the warm-up because he was on the wing row, and he always has a good game against the Ospreys. So that's one bit of hope for you.
Yeah, maybe we'll see. Maybe it's the ideal time for him to sort of come off the bench. So, who knows? I'm unfortunately pessimistically, I'm similar to Nick. I think that I'm not expecting a brilliant game of rugby. For me, Philo is under a bit of pressure in terms of results. You think about it, I think he's won what? Two competitive Dragons games since he's come in. No, one competitive Dragons game in it because Flan was in charge during
Yeah.
the Osprey games. So, one win in God knows how many games. But in a weird way, he's almost bomb-proof, isn't he, because of the situation in Welsh rugby, which is a real weird place to be in. It's not good for anybody, is it? It can't be good for anybody. So, yeah, I'm a bit pessimistic about the whole affair, if I'm honest. And I think with Nick, it's going to be similar. It's going to be a dour affair, and you're looking at it being a low-scoring one. I just hope the men are going to come out on top of it.
As we started leaning into predictions now, shall we do them a little bit more formally? So we'll just quickly whip round. Then I promise we'll go on to our Wales squad chat. Dan, as you had last word then, do you want to go through your predictions? So Sharks versus Scarlets, then Dragons Ospreys, and then Cardiff versus Edinburgh, please.
Sharks by 15. I'm going to go Dragons by 3, just because I'll back the Dragons every week, just to make the most of it. What's this still about? And I'm going to go. Where's the Cardiff Edinburgh game?
It's at Cap.
It's at Cardiff Arms Park. Okay. Cardiff by 4.
Fair enough. Nick, as the other half of the derby,
Okay. Sharks by 11, Ospreys by 3, and Cardiff by 2.
excellent. Now, Hattie, we'll put you out of your misery.
Go Sharks by 10. Hopefully, Scarlets prove me wrong. I highly doubt it. Dragons versus Ospreys. I'm gonna say Ospreys by 3. But there's so much riding on that in terms of personnel, it could really go either way. And then I'm gonna say Edinburgh by 5.
But you're probably right. Yeah. So I've gone with Sharks by 12, but I could easily see them losing by 12 because it's the Sharks. I've gone for the Ospreys by 5. I just think what they've got potentially coming in is a lot better than what the Dragons can bring in, and I don't know how they're going to pick themselves up from that performance, especially after the rotation for the Glasgow game, where arguably that team had a better performance. And then I'm being optimistic, and I'm going Cardiff by 6. That's me being optimistic after the last couple of Edinburgh games where we've left both with nothing in the last 2 seasons. So that was all those predictions. Now, if you have enjoyed what you've been listening to and you enjoy 4 depressed people talking about Welsh rugby every week, please do like, subscribe, share us a comment. Had a lovely bit of feedback from lovely Cardiff fan Theo at Rodney Parade. It said, hopefully if you remember to send that email you said you're going to, because I'm sure Nick would quite happily have you on the Welsh pod.
Oh, definitely.
We'll try and get you on Cardiff Central at some time. And if, like, Theo, you want to join, send us a message. We can't guarantee be able to squeeze you in every week, but we're always looking for presenters. If you want to listen to any of the other regional pods, they're all up on here for Cardiff Ospreys, Dragons, and Scarlets, who I imagine are equally happy at the moment. There's also the SRC pod. Then over on our other on the other channel, Global K9, there is the Mall Street Journal for the USA Rugby, who keep telling me off because I don't mention them or I say their name wrong. So they exist. And I'm not going to mention any others on the Global K9, so it's all about them this time. Women's Rugby Tree, we all know the Women's Rugby Treehouse is the powerhouse that gets that channel going. But we've just got to let the Americans feel special. You know, it's like world politics. Yeah. You've just got to let them be happy.
You've got to let the Americans have their moment.
Exactly. Now, without further ado, Wales squad. So this autumn we are playing a very easy set of fixtures. Of course not. It's the bloody WRU. They want the moneymakers. So we are starting off with Argentina, then Japan, finishing up with New Zealand, then double world champ South Africa without any non-Welsh players. Hooray. Right. So I don't know if anyone wants to take this whilst I try and set up share my screen.
Well, I think everybody's been quite impressed with Steve Tandy so far. You know, turning up at games, trying to build good relationships. But his honeymoon will be over tomorrow. I think they're announcing the team at 1:00, and whoever he picks, we know the social media and Facebook will be on fire with criticism.
How dare you didn't pick some guy that I know from Tesco? I work with his mum, and you haven't picked him. How rude! Bring back Reece Carey.
Oh, he's the answer to all our problems.
He is. He will solve everything. Yeah.
Right, let's see how this ends up working, because I have no idea.
Oh,
Because I've not used. Where has it gone now?
Oh, I can see you. I've got a little floating Harley, and the sheet.
We can see it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because hopefully I can't see what I've shared.
Yeah.
Which is always handy. Right. So you can all see that now. So just sort of running through. So I asked everyone so I've put up my idea of a Wales squad, the squad that we took to Japan, and then everyone was invited to do. Dan, unfortunately, has had a lot on, so we didn't have a chance. That's fine. So just going through the Japan squad. So props, we had Gary Phillips, Nicky Smith, Gareth Thomas. Tight we had Kieran Azarati, Chris Coleman, Archie Griffin. At hooker, Liam Belcher, Elliot D, Debbie Lake. Then second rows, Ben Carter, James Ratty, Teddy Williams, and Freddie Thomas. Back rowers, we had Soupy Falato, Josh McLeod, Alex Mann, Tane Plumtree, Tommy Reffel, and Aaron Wainwright. Then when we move on to the backs, we have Kieran Hardy, Ruben Morgan Williams, Audrey Williams. Sam Costello and Dan Edwards as our fly halves. A centre quartet of Max Page, Joe Roberts, Ben Thomas, Johnny Williams. And then in the back three, we've got Josh Adams, Keelan Giles, Blair Murray, Tom Rogers, and Cam Winnett. So that was Japan. That was a 33-man squad. we don't know how many exactly Tandy's gone, but we've decided we're going to work to a 40-man squad. So for me, when I was going through this, the changes, I'm just going to go through my changes thing. So Henry Thomas in for Chris Coleman, because he is even despite Scott's form, he's a bit stronger. Elliot G's injured. I think the only real Welsh qualified hooker who's really playing much is Brodie Coughlin. So I think he hops in. The other option, I suppose, is Evan Lloyd, who's had a few games. Second row, Adam Beard and Dav Jenkins come straight in for me after having the summer off. And then because, with Freddie Thomas, Dav Jenkins and Adam Beard not going to be available for the South Africa game, I've also got Rhys Davies in there as that sort of extra lock option. Josh McLeod's injured, so I've done a straight swap for him and Jack Morgan. And I've also brought in Morgan Morse because they said, if they had 34 places, he was going to go in. So that's where my thing is. Roger Williams, straight swap with Thomas Williams, who, was on the Lions tour then. And I'm bringing Callum Sheedy in as an extra man. Just because I think he's been on good form, and I think we probably could do with a third choice at fly-half. Centre-wise, I'm only bringing in Matt Swellen just because I feel like he adds a bit of biff I'd be missing. And then in back three, just 2 additions. So Lewis Rees-Zammit being eligible again, regardless of what you think of him as an off-field persona, he is a rapid lad. If he does recover from his toe injury at Bristol in time. And there's going to be I think there is going to be a bit of debate over this one with Tom Bowen. I think he's probably ready at least to be involved in the squad, even if he doesn't necessarily get any game time. So that's what I've put in. It's not necessarily who I think, I've just put through. So if we go through position by position, people feel free to chime in. So starting with the props. So Nick, you think Wyn Jones instead of Garen Phillips? Obvious reasons, I'm guessing.
I just, so Garen has got a lot of potential, but he was defensively weak on that try. Dobie scored second try, overran it. His scrummaging is improving, but is it a case of who we're playing? Wyn Jones, not on the best form, but is doing okay. He's been there, he's done it. He's played at the very highest standard for Wales and the British Lions. So that's just a call. Unfortunately, when we get when we get to tight heads, it's Hobson's choice, really, isn't it? They just haven't got the quality there, and ultimately, when you play in New Zealand and you play in South Africa, we're going to be found out there, and it's not necessarily down to the loose head.
Yeah, there's a saying on Women's Rugby Treehouse that the Welsh prop cupboard is empty, and it turns out it's not only empty for the women, it's also empty for the men. So I don't know where all of our big lads and lasses have gone, but if they would like to take up rugby, it would be nice.
For me, there's an argument that, tight head props are most important position on the field. No doubt about it. And when you look at our choices there of Azarati, Griffin, Thomas, Coleman, and throw Dylan Lewis back into the mix now he's back in Wales. Personally, I'd take Dylan Lewis over Azarati, if I'm honest. I don't think Azarati's international standard prop lacks a bit of physicality around the field, and is not a massively good scrummager. But I think everyone would probably I'd be happy to see Henry Thomas start. He's probably our best tight head prop, I would have thought. And for me, Nicky Smith has to start the first game as well, based on his form. I think he was excellent for Leicester against Bath. I think he scored a try as well, didn't he? Nicky Smith scored a try. I'm sure I saw his name in the try column. So that's where I'd be going there. But yeah, like Nick said, it is Hobson's choice. We are really lacking a cornerstone for our scrum. Maybe we've been, and again, this is where you look at it, you go, well, this is the failure of the pathway in there. We had Adam Jones, and then we had Tom Francis come through, who, did manage to lock a scrum out for us thereafter. We had, who else do we have in that interim
The heir
period as
apparent
well?
was Samson Lee, wasn't it? And he just could never stay fit.
Yeah, just injury after injury.
And again, I don't understand why. Leon Brown as well was injury after injury, and he was the heir apparent. I know, and we've had this problem for a long time. I remember I played with Jamie Coursey, who went on a Wales tour to Australia. And I grew up playing with Jamie, nice guy. And he was a converted back rower into tight end prop just because they've never been around. The talent ID stuff has to be going down. In Wales now has to be going down the spine of the team and going, right, we need tight end props.
Yeah.
From a young age now, what kids are playing at sort of 11, 12 years of age that have got interest in rugby and genetically look like they're going to be tight end props because we need to start working with them. Keep them interested in the game, whatever it is, because we are lacking in that position. But other than Dylan Lewis, I threw Dylan Lewis in for Azarati, I think, and other than that, that's pretty much all we got because we're not getting Thomas Francis back, are we?
No.
I said, I mean, and I was thinking about the other Welsh qualified tight ends, and I'm thinking, well, Sam Wainwright isn't really playing for Cardiff.
No.
He's third choice behind Havan Sebastian. I don't think Havan qualifies for Wales at all. I think
No, he'd
I
have to
think
be up
it's
for
I think
3
it's
years.
Scotland, Argentina was his.
Yeah, that's right,
Yeah.
yeah. And
But
he's
he'd have to
played
have,
recently as well.
yeah, he'd have to have 3 years out of international rugby anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I said, then Scotland seem to keep giving that odd cap. I do have the option of trying to make Wyn Jones a tight end, which I think is a bit late now. I'd rather not. And then Chris Coleman again hasn't really been playing because it's been Rob Hampton and Lewis for most of their game time. Is it Sam Scott, the under-20s tight head? I don't think he's been playing. I think he's at Bath.
You got Will Griff,
Bath
John.
Bristol. And then Will Griff John.
Yeah.
But
He's due one good game.
It's like Lance the Slaughter tight, isn't it? You look at the loose heads that are going to be coming to town. Apart from the Japan game, I think it's.
Well, even then, I mean,
I wouldn't put it past him. Like
Japan had our number in the scrum out in Japan. I wouldn't even put it there.
They're very good technical scrummagers.
And we just don't. I don't think we have the mass to make the most of it.
We're bottom book if they're going to push us around the Principality in a couple of weeks. Come on, guys, come on. We need to have a little bit of positivity here.
All right, so bit because prop is depressing now. So do you want to agree? Dylan Lewis in for Azarati and Wyn Jones for Garner Phillips. Any real pushback?
Yeah, I think I agree.
Yeah. I mean, or if you want to put an extra set of props in, that's
not necessarily who I want. It's more about who I think they'll pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, my only the thing with Wyn Jones is just on an age thing. I think it's completely up to what is the goal. Are we looking for a quick win, or are we looking at development? And that's where it goes with Wyn Jones for me, and some of the others throughout the squad as well.
But I mean, there's plenty of other people in that front row who are on the older side anyway. So I mean, I think with the scrum, just get them in and worry about development as and when. This again is why we really need Wales A fixtures.
Yeah.
Instead of filling out the stadium for a fourth fixture, why not do Wales A, Portugal? Let's get. Well then, anyway, so we'll put that in. So Hook also doing that. Hookers, any pushback on Belcher, Coughlin, and Debbie Lake? Again, I'm just going on who's fit really.
Yeah, it's only that I haven't heard by Elliot D. I do like Elliot D. I would be pushing for him if I knew he was coming back for his experience again. But I take it he's not going to be available. So I'm quite happy with those three.
I would second what Nick said then, yeah. If he's available, he would come in for me over Brodie.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for me, there's a call that they might go for Evan Lloyd over Belcher, just because he's had a bit more and he's a bit physically a bigger man, but I think Belcher's probably the better hooker of the two.
What I think that we need to look at here as well is the fact that, look, international rugby is going to come down to how many collisions you can win in the game. You win more collisions than the other team, you stand a chance of winning a fixture. Now, I look at Dewi Lake, he's going to win his fair share of collisions. I think Brodie probably would as well. I don't think Liam Belcher's going to be able to that top level, which may see him out of the squad instead of someone like an Evan Lloyd. This is, and again, like Nick, you're going, when you're thinking about these things, what are you looking for, especially up front? It has to be all about the collisions. Has to be. Because without that, we have nothing.
Mm.
Right, so we're going to chuck Evan Lloyd in then?
Well, add him for good measure, go on. Why not?
Or we can have him as a fourth hooker, and we just extend the squad or take some from somewhere else. I
Just
mean,
for me,
he's
based on his profile, he'd go in instead of Belcher.
yeah. As you can tell, I'm really sold on the squad I threw out for myself. It was mostly just trying to fill in the extra spots. Right, so that was relatively quick and painless. Let's go over to second rows. I'll be honest, for me, it was just basically I felt we needed a couple more second rows in Japan, especially with Freddie Thomas being more. Teddy Williams is injured, so I thought I just thought, well, Rhys Davis is a nice solid lump. He does all the things. Another option you might look at is Matthew Screech, who has been playing. He's been one of the better aspects of the Dragons, but
I think
that's sorry, Hattie, go on.
Oh, I was going to say, I think one, you need more than 4 locks anyway, I think, when you're playing that number of games. But secondly, I think our first choice is probably going to be Beard and Jenkins. And they're not going to be available for a game. So we're going to need a bit of depth there. I would say, though, I watched the Exeter game the other day. Jenkins, for me, I really like him as a player. I think he needs to put some heft on. The Exeter scrum, although Exeter came out and out winners, that scrum just got absolutely decimated, and it was primarily because there was no heft in that second row, and Jenkins is just he's a bit of a beanpole still.
Well, see, now I watched it at the game where they come back against Northampton, and I looked at Jenkins, and I thought he'd had himself a good off season. There was a wide angle shot of him trotting across the field, and I thought he'd been on the Arnold Schwarzenegger diet over the summer. He looked as though he put a bit of beef onto me.
They got eaten alive on Saturday. Was it Saturday or Sunday? Absolutely eaten alive by the Queen's pack. Not that Queen's could do anything with it, mind, but
the other thing I would add to the options there is that Beard has been playing in France for the last couple of months, and the one thing that should do to him is toughen him up a little bit, because whilst we're all aware of his abilities in and around the set piece, he's a little bit, he's soft as puppy shit really at times, in my opinion. He's not a gnarly, hard-nosed, hobnail boot second row like your Alan Wynne-Jones, your Etzebets, your James Ryans, all these people who are going to, just keep Mara Toje and so on and so forth. So hopefully that's toughened him up a little bit. But which fixture are we without them for? The first one?
No, the last
the
one.
last one.
South African.
Who won't have their? They won't have. I don't know about the Japanese players, but they won't have all their players playing elsewhere either. But they've got a little bit more strength in depth.
There's enough players who play for like the Sharks and the Bulls. And
absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
They're still going to have players like Sasha Feinberg and Gomezulu, or they're going to have Henry Pollard. Like that. That's just 2 options at 10, and they'll still have Etzebeth.
It's all relative.
They'll be fine.
They might be missing Colby, but I don't think that's going to be an issue.
Oh no, they might have to play. Oh no, so now Aaron's I think playing France now. But they'll have be Edwin van der Merwe. He'll be playing. Oh no, because he's terrible, isn't he? I think locks. That's basically just what we've got. I don't know if anyone's got a strong call for someone else to come in.
No, I think for the first 3 fixtures there needs to be Beard and Jenkins for me in those slots. That would be my choice.
My big worry with those 2 is neither of them are particularly strong ball carriers. Like David Jenkins, one of his USBs is he nukes rucks, which is useful because that can help with quick ball when you haven't necessarily got the best ball carriers.
Yeah, but if you throw it and if you get the balance of the back row right,
this is where
it's crucial.
This is where the next conversation is whether or not you're looking for a Freddie Thomas or a Ratty at 6, or moving on to back row. So the back row I've picked. So Faletau writes his name in. I think same for Aaron Wainwright. Jack Mulligan wasn't there. He was out with the Lions. For me, Alex Mann, I think, has been playing really well for Cardiff, and I think he is adding a bit of the dog. He's probably not the most physical and abrasive, but I think we can get better ball. We can have other ball carriers to accommodate that. Reffel and Plumtree it's sort of a case of they just carry on over from previous squad. For me, any pushback? I know, Nick, you said to have Ross Moriarty in addition to this and one fewer back.
Well, I just if you want somebody who's going to be in your face, both sides of the ball, done it at international level, played very well since he's come back to the Ospreys. He was our best player, I think, probably on Saturday. Well, he's your man. Yeah. And do you respect Alex Mann? He's got potential, but if it's a straight shootout between those two, there's only one winner for me. Sorry, and that's not being anti-Alex Mann at Cardiff, but just trying to be objective.
No, I mean, if we agreed, this wouldn't be a debate, would it?
Yeah, that's where I go with that as well. As I said, you need to win collisions. So what you have coming off the bench, because my back row, I think, would be Faletau, Wainwright, and Morgan. I'd go Wainwright at 6. I think he's done enough to justify that, and I'd have Moriarty coming off the bench. Personally,
I said swap out Reffel for Moriarty. I think he's not going to be available for a game. I don't think he's going to beat out Jack Morgan for that 7 shirt. There's other 7 cover kind of on the bench in that group. He's just not going to
true 7, so that's the problem. Like Mawson, Alex Mann, we're 7 and can do a bit of it, but they're not necessarily true 7. Same as Wainwright isn't really a 7.
But I just think he's not available for a game. I would rather have a big ball carrier and Moriarty and also has experience rather than Reffel, who's going to potentially take up a spot on the bench every game, and he doesn't necessarily do all that much. I don't think that we necessarily get the best of him in a Wales shirt, which is unfortunate. But it's primarily because him and Jack Morgan don't balance each other out well when they play together. And he doesn't necessarily play that well off the bench.
The other name maybe to throw out there is Kane James.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder...
Yeah. He's come on and played for Exeter, done well. I thought, again, Will Gainline, good feet. Feet before contact. Do they include him in the squad?
I wonder if we'll have something that the Wales women have done a little bit here and there. And I know that Ireland, especially Ireland men, have done it, is that they've brought in kind of like a mini team and they've named them as like training group. And I wonder if people like that are going to come in that training group.
Yeah, maybe. The one guy on there I would like to see in a Wales shirt over the international as well as Morgan Morse. I think he's got a real X factor for me in that back row. Big, strong ball carrier, quick. Has got the ability that not a lot of other people have got in world rugby. Strong, fast, abrasive. Maybe the Japan fixture's the one for him to come in and have a little go at it. But I think he's got a very high ceiling as Morgan Morse. They gave him the summer off because I think he should have gone on that Japan tour anyway. In my opinion, so he's obviously given the summer off for a reason. I hope he gets hope he gets his first cap this autumn because he's deserving of it, in my opinion.
Going back to Kane James, I would understand why they might want to do it, but can you honestly tell me he's done more in his professional career than Harry Deeves?
No, but Harry Deeves is injured, is my understanding at the moment. Because if it's going to be a choice between Deeves and Reffel rather, I'd take Deeves if I'm honest, because he's playing in Wales and I think it would be an opportunity to reward those. Plus, I think his performances need rewarding anyway. You think, mind, Harry Deeves has been able to come through and pick up a pro contract at the Ospreys and have 50 appearances already when fellow back rowers have been Jack Morgan and Justin Tipperick. So that shows how good he is. He's able to compete at that standard. If he was available, Deves, I'd stick him in instead of Reffell personally. I'm thinking the Kane James thing because obviously we all know what happened with the England at the 20s. He chose to play there, and as soon as I'm not one for, I'm a bit old school in it. I think you should earn your cap. But unfortunately, in the modern day pro game, the sooner you stick a Wales cap on his head rather than England one, the better, because
I get that.
he does have a high ceiling. Um, so, and we need these players at the moment. So that's why I only brought Kane James into it. But you're 100% right about Deves, and I hope he recovers in time to get his selection because he's deserving of it as well.
I mean, if we could get a cap on Kepi Tuipulotu, I'd be very happy. But that's not going to happen.
Go up and just stick him on as a hooker.
Yeah, just stick him on as a hooker. Well, I think he can play tight head prop as well. So
That would actually be really,
that
really
would be
helpful.
really
I'm not
helpful.
even. That's not even a joke.
I'm
Yeah,
old school. I'm old school on this. Is if you're Welsh, you feel Welsh, you are Welsh. But if you don't feel Welsh enough to want to play for your country, fine by me. I'm not going to go to take my begging bowl to anybody to play for us.
But I mean, 25 grand just to sit on, even just to sit on the bench sounds very, very enticing compared to dealing with Welsh.
I do agree with what Nick says to a point, but on the other hand, we can't allow like this talent drain to continue. We can't have another Manuel Fee Boso. We just can't allow that. So this is why I would be doing all I can to kind of get them back. And if the lad Tui Pilotu is potentially available for selection as well, then there's no doubt he's got a high ceiling as a talented hooker. So maybe we need to look at that. But and again, you're looking at collision winners. International rugby is all about collision winners and gain line. If we're going to be stopped on the gain line and having to kick the ball and rely on winning a territory game, then we're gonna struggle. We need to win gain line every time we do play the ball rather than going from side to side. So yeah.
Right, so final verdict on this. Do we want to have Ross Moriarty in as well as the others or instead of someone?
Well, if we've got to sacrifice someone in the back line, if we want to bring Moriarty in.
Yeah, you on the back line I've put, so you might not necessarily agree with all the players I've put in there.
Well, put him in as an extra for now, and then if we take somebody else out, we'll be still back down to 40.
Or we can just say we're having 41 players.
Okay.
It's our squad. We can do what we like.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly.
Stick him in there. We'll have 41. Stuff for you, man.
Based on what I'd written out, it was basically in place of where I put Tom Bowen with Nick, so that's fine. The other debate whilst we're just before we finish forwards is I've put Dewi Lake as my captain. Hattie, you think Jack Morgan? Personally, I think Dewi is more effective as a captain, certainly from what I've seen, than both captains for Wales.
Yeah.
But Jack's a fantastic player and he will lead from the front. But I feel like Dewi Lake is better referee management. And I think that's almost as important as anything else.
I do agree with you. I was just thinking, who is the golden boy? And that is Jack. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's named captain. That's what I'm saying. I don't particularly. Do I think Lake is maybe a better captain? Yes. I just won't be surprised if it's Jack.
No, I wouldn't be surprised. I just think Lake is the better option, personally.
Yeah.
Jack for me. I go ahead. So Jack for me.
Yeah, I think yes, captaincy is about like who's gonna speak to the ref really well, but I think Jack is more well known to the public. I think he sounds better in interviews, and I think that's why the WIU prefer him.
There you go. We might go back to co-captains then.
Yeah, well, I agree with you, Harley. I think Jack is a fantastic player, but I think Dewi is that little bit more experienced, and I would go with Dewi for the captaincy. I just want Jack to play. And the other thing is Jack is our team captain, and I think it's very hard for anybody to captain your club and your country. Alan Wynne didn't do it, so for me, Jack's fine for us as captain when he comes in, but I would stick with Dewi as team captain. But 6-1 half doesn't hear there.
Yeah, true.
Right, moving on to the other half of the teams. So scrum halves, is there really any debates on these three? I think Rodri played himself out of the jersey so far this season. Unfortunately, Thomas is our number 9. Just is, and I don't think either of the Ospreys boys have done anything. Not right, and unless Gareth Davis is going to unretire.
Well, I don't think he's done much this season anyway. If he does, eventually age catches up with people, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I said I think Mulder really, he's taken the 9 jersey at Cardiff. So
yeah, I agree with those. Tom will start as well.
Yeah. If anyone's wondering the order I've written them down, it's pretty much just alphabetical. That's the only real decisions I've done there. I've not really thought of it. Fly halves, Costello and Edwards are the incumbents, and I said I think Sheedy's been on good form, and I feel like we could do with another 10 if we can afford to expand the squad out.
Mm-hmm.
I think with Sheedy as well, he would bring a little bit of experience off the bench. So if it did get in a tight game, probably against Japan, I can't see being too tight in the other fixtures. He would just bring that little bit of organisation to the back line, kick us maybe into corners, kick the ball into the corners, so they have to attack from their 22. Yeah, I'm quite happy. I think Sheedy's played well this season, and I'd be quite happy to have him as a third 10.
Yeah, I think for me though, I think Dan Edwards starts.
I'm inclined to agree because I think the team that won out in Japan, start them as close as possible and then bring in from there. Moving on to centres now. This is a bit more of a interesting one. Like, do you go for 5? Do you go for a few less? I think Max Vernon just comes in because, again, he just adds something a little bit different. Goes 10-12. You may notice that one name is being overridden with Johnny Williams and Nick Tompkins, who, again, 1 is playing very well for Saracens. 2 is playing well outside of ball-playing centre. So I think that's something that we need to bear in mind as well. And then Joe Hawkins, just because why would you bring him back if you weren't?
Who's the ball playing centre at Saracens at the minute, though?
Owen Farrell.
Exactly. Now, there's a difference there between Owen Farrell and Ben Thomas, because while Farrell is a ball playing centre, he's also his level of physicality is international level. He's going to bang people. So even if you played him at 12, he'd be able to truck the ball up as well and get you gain line. There's a difference for me there. Now, I agree, Johnny out and Nick Tompkins in. I'd go with that. But when you're looking at, again, our centre partnership, for me, you need to be looking at gain line. Which of those individuals on there are going to get you gain line?
Well, I'm going to make a case for Kieran Williams. I don't think Max Page has done anything. I think with Page and me, I think they're suffering a little bit from second season syndrome. They've not really shone in any of the games I've seen. I don't think they've had a taste. They need to go back and work on the games, get some really good performances into the Scarlets. But I don't think Max Page should be anywhere near the squad either.
No, I'd go along with that. I'd be happy with that. Yeah, I'd be happy with that. I think Kieran Williams is a tough little nuggety type of character. Whether his physicality and his overall physical makeup would be able to cut it at international level, who knows? But he tends to do all right at URC level, doesn't he? He punches well above his weight. So there's only one way to find out, I suppose. But for me, again, it's all about gain line. And if Kieran Williams is going to be the one to get you gain line with Max Llewellyn outside him or Nick Tompkins to get you a bit of gain line, then that's what we got to look to do. Because, when Wales have been at our best and in our pomp, we're like Roberts and Foxy at 12 and 13, both different players, but both able to get you gain line in different ways. And that's what we need. We need to win collisions in midfield and get over that gain line.
I think for me, I was never somebody that was like, oh, we need to get, bend the rules. Joe Hawkins needs to come back into the Wales squad. But having watched him play for the Scarlets, I think it's a solid choice. I think it'd be really surprising if he's not included in the squad. I think he gives you a bit of flexibility. I think he's come back and he's a much better player than he was originally. So I'd be really surprised if he's left out of the squad.
I don't think he's done enough for me, if I'm honest, Joe Hawkins, this time around. Yeah, it wouldn't be for me this time, I don't think.
I think it's likely to be a shout between him and Kieran Williams, really, isn't it? I think it's one or the other.
I think it's going to depend on whether or not you want your 12 to be a ball player, and just if you can track it up, great. But it's not going to be the main part of your game. In which case, do you want both your main 12 options to be that? In which case, you go Joe Hawkins and Ben, and then you have someone like Maxwell in or Nick Tompkins coming in and being a bit more physical.
I suppose what I would say on that though is if you want someone you're talking about Tompkins playing well outside of Farrell who can his physicality could do a little bit of both. I suppose Hawkins would be the one who could A, be the ball player and C, gave some gain line as well. That way,
Yeah.
He's a big lad.
He's almost mixing Kieran Williams and Ben Thomas together.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. He's got a little bit of both. He's maybe not as good a ball player as Ben Thomas is, maybe not as physical as Kieran Williams is, but does a bit of both. So maybe that'll see him in there. I don't know.
I haven't put him in my squad yet. But if we're looking for a bit of both, Jacob Beetham. Now he hasn't played a lot of 12, although that is what Jockey sees him sort of as a 15 from 12. Again, he's a big lad. He's quite physical. I know he's sort of struggled out in the wider channels for pace, which weird since he's sort of ostensibly a fullback. But again, went through the systems at 10, has a hell of a boot on him. Whenever he has had to kick goals for Cardiff, he's been near enough dead on.
I think we need to see a lot more of him, Harley.
Yeah, this is the thing. The problem for me is
if he can put a good run of games together for the Six Nations, yeah, he's got a good shout.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what are we thinking of final set for centres? So, Max. So quick, yes, just yeses and nos. Max Llewellyn.
Yes.
Keith from Leith.
Yeah.
Oof. I want to advocate.
I've got to say yes. I've got to say yes.
You've got to back.
But I would understand if they went with Hawkins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So then we've got Ben. I'm going to skip Joe Roberts.
Yeah.
Probably the only dedicated proper 13, classic 13 I can think of, really. I think we're all agreed on Nick Tompkins.
Yeah.
Ben Thomas again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, and then it's just a case of, does Joe Hawkins come in?
I think personally, I think him over Kieran Williams, but
could swap him out for one of the back three because looking at the back three, does Keelan Giles get a sniff in that in reality? Probably not.
Again, it was me. Keelan Giles a lot of these are carried over, and then I just want.
I don't. I'm just looking at it now. Though you think out of all those players in the back three there, does he get a sniff? Probably not. Does Joe Hawkins get more of a sniff in midfield? Maybe. So therefore, you could swap him out. I'd be happy to swap.
Is it maybe a case for another centre because three of those names, Maxwell and Nick Tompkins, not could be available for South Africa, are they?
Yeah. So again, you'd stick Hawkins in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good shout.
I said, I suppose you can. I know Nick Tompkins has played on the wing for Wales, as has Joe Roberts, and Ben Thomas can cover fullback. It's not his best position, but you can afford to lose some back three then because you've got your versatility. Right, so going through the back three. So Adams, for me personally, I know.
Yeah.
Hattie, you left him out for Ellis.
I just forgot about him, to be honest.
It's because he's just quietly getting the work done. It doesn't need to be flashy. He's just doing his job. He's just going through. Yeah, I said it because I actually think Josh Adams is pretty much back to his best after the summer.
Starts for me.
I just forgot about him. I have to be honest. He hasn't really shone for me, but
I think the starting back three personally would be Adams, Murray, and Louis Rees-Zammit. If Louis Rees-Zammit's fit, and therefore the others sort of make up the numbers. Ellis Me, I think, has done okay. As Hartley's saying, Tom Bowen for me has got to be in the squad based on form alone. I watched him play on Friday night. The Dragons kicked Paulie straight to him, but the guy's electric. You get him in space. So I think he deserves his opportunity. And the only other guy that I've been sort of mooting around in the group chat has been Carrington at Bristol.
Yeah, but again, I think he might also be injured because I think
Yeah, I think
just
he is.
everyone in Bristol is injured.
Yeah, he is injured. I just thought that the
Yeah,
times that I've seen
I
him
do
this
agree.
play,
I thought
and
he's been pretty
he's
good
he's
on
But we
been
need to
good.
see more of him.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
2, 3. Everybody can have, certain players can have 2, 3 good games, but I just think you need to see a certain. I'm on the fence with Tom Bowen as well. Obviously, I've watched him a lot for the under-20s. I don't know if he was injured in the summer, but he didn't really feature for the 20s as a starter. He's electric, of course he is. He certainly needs to be in the wider squad. If you use Hattie's point about bringing them along for experience, is it the best thing to do psychologically to get involved now, give him a cap,
I
or is
think
it
so.
better to just say, yeah, come along, we want to work with you, go back and play for Cardiff now till Christmas, and everything we've seen indicates you're going to be in the Six Nations squad.
I think it would be really unfair to leave him out purely because I think out of any Welsh player at the moment, he's not just in wingers, but just generally, I think he's probably the informed Welsh player. So to leave him out would be bizarre.
After 4 professional games of rugby, I've just been the
But
devil's advocate here.
yeah,
Well,
but
it's been
how
more
off
than that.
how
Actually, he did have quite a few at the back end of last
Oh
season.
yeah,
So,
sorry, I had a few last, didn't we? Sorry,
but like
So-
how quick did we bring George North in? How quick did we bring
was it
Louis Rees-Zammit in?
They were different. George North was a big man at 18, 19. Reece had out and out pace at 18, 19.
yeah, but so is Bowen. Like that's
Yeah.
as well as his footwork, and him actually being really physical for his size as well. I don't think
Oh, I'm
people
not saying
appreciate just how hard he
not.
hits. But
Look, I as I say,
I was about to
devil's
back up
advocate.
your point anyway before I just went and argued against you. But also think about players like Mackenzie Martin, Evan Lloyd, who've sort of been brought through too soon, and now they've sort of had their struggles now. So I do get with. I think he should be in the squad, not necessarily someone who's going to play, like someone who could. I think he's good enough to play if we need to have him play. If we pick up a couple of injuries, but I think the experience of being in that squad
Oh yeah,
will be good for him because I think that's something that will just help take him up to. We're talking about players like Sione Tuipulotu, who when they're at club level just look unplayable.
yeah.
I think Tom Bowen can be one of those players. So I'd like to see him. I'd just like to see him there or thereabouts.
I just think going back to your Mackenzie Martin point very quickly, like it is different being a winger. When you're a young number 8 that's sort of 20, 21 years of age and you're having to go and mix it against these big airy arse 31, 32-year-olds who are, have been doing it week in, week out and year out for the last 5 or 6 seasons. That's a different ask. Whereas I think that Bowen, for example, it's almost no pressure on Bowen really, because if it doesn't work out, everyone will go, it's not his time yet. He's a little bit small, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Whereas if it does work and he does have a bit of a storm, again, for me, he wouldn't start. But he may offer that little bit of X factor coming off the bench. You imagine him, you imagine being a front 5 forward and seeing him come on the field at sort of 70 minutes. You're thinking, oh, please don't run at me. Please don't run at me. And you get him in those spaces, give him one-on-one opportunities, and he's going to beat the man. So I just think he offers something that a little bit different, and it's probably a bit easier being an outside back than it is being a forward or a fly half. That sort of thing.
He complements Murray quite well as a left winger because he's got a good left foot as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I think actually back to Cam Winnett, we haven't spoken about Cam Winnett. I think he's been solid in the times that he's played this season. A little bit no frills, solid under the high ball, can kick, good step. So yeah, I think that's those are probably the obvious choices, aren't they? The ones that are on that list there.
We get
Yeah.
half, like we'll be pleased.
Yeah, the only other one sorry, not the only other one I said was Carrington, but another one that we talked about briefly, and I think you told me Nick he wasn't qualified yet, was Jack Walsh.
No,
Yeah,
I've been told Even though he's been in the UK for 5 years, you've got to be 5 years in the country you want to play for.
Right. And how long's he been in?
I think he's on his 4th year now. I think he'll qualify just before the 2027 World Cup.
Because again, for me, he seems like a quality operator.
I'm genuinely surprised the USA haven't tried snapping him up.
Yeah.
Because they seem to be trying to get hold of absolutely anyone who potentially could play for them. Like even like, I know, same for Canada actually. I know a couple of people run by me who've been called up into training squads. Like, what's one guy, the Canada team actually paid for him to fly over. And that's Canada putting their hands in their pocket. And they don't do that for anyone.
Especially not their men's squad.
Exactly. But yeah. So I said, I feel like, Keelan Giles deserved his spot on the Japan tour. Again, I don't think he's necessarily done anything wrong. I know he's a bit injured, but I thought it was only like a mild knock.
I don't think it's much. I'm expecting to be available on Saturday.
But I think if we're putting in a couple of extra centres, then
he could miss out.
Is he the one who goes? At the very least, at least him. You put in Ellis Me again. I kind of agree with Dan. He's not really.
I think
he's in. He's struggling in a struggling Scarlet side, which I think might.
Yeah, and I also think with Louis Rees-Zammit coming back to being available and Tom Bowen in the form that he's in, I think the likes of Giles and me can miss out.
I guess the thing is, the interesting to me is what wing if we are assuming Zammit comes in, do you think he carries on with the right wing, or do you think he's the sort of person who Jockey would like on the left wing in his attack because he does like his pace on the left?
Potentially.
You have Josh Adams and Tom Rogers, then he's your sort of right wing.
Yeah, and I think
solid defensive, good under the high ball types.
Yeah, potentially. And I think, as well, going out for just over a year and a half, he, can't be as picky as he was before necessarily.
X factor player, you've got to put him in because it alters the way teams play against us. They know they can't kick loose to him. He's
more tactical.
Yeah.
Which wing that was? It's not necessarily debating him.
No, I wouldn't mind, but sorry, just to cut you off there. If you go back actually to the top of the list there, and then go through what is likely to be or would be in theory on paper the best start in 15, it's not terrible. Working backwards now, you've got Blair Murray, Louis Rees-Zammit, Josh Adams. Say if we went, I don't know, Tompkins and Llewellyn in midfield, for example. Not terrible. Dan Edwards, Thomas Williams. Good pair in there. Jack Morgan, world-class operator. Faletau, world-class operator. Wainwright, world-class operator. Moriarty potentially coming off the bench. What have we got? Beard and Jenkins in the second row. And or Carter maybe. Then you're looking at, Nicky Smith, Dewi Lake, and Henry Thomas.
Yeah, we shouldn't be pushover, should we?
Can't be a pushover, can it? That's all right, didn't it?
I mean,
give me some positivity. Come on, come at me. We're going to win all 4.
I think I don't think our problem has necessarily been the talent of the players, like the raw talent of players that we've had. I think the problem has been coaching, and it's just been general apathy. And we've just not been able to put in any results.
Positivity. Come on, give us. We've been weak defensively, right? So Tandy's going to come in and shore up our defence. We've got Jockey coming in, who's going to give us an attacking identity, and we'll play to our strengths.
Exit strategy from our own 22.
An exit strategy. We got Duncan Jones coming in to have a look at our scrum. We know how well the Ospreys have done. Positive.
There you go. He might make Azarati a top class. Actually, for me, I think Azarati is a weak thing, but. Sorry, particularly talking to someone who used to scrummage against him quite regularly whilst he was at the Wrexham Newport.
Come on now, go and wash your mouth out. I don't think Jesus couldn't make Azarati a good scrummager. Come on.
He's technically brilliant. He just has no power behind him, which is just weird. He also seems to need to go and have him lie down after 10 minutes.
Is he the prop that got stuck in
any game with Kieran Azarati? After 10 minutes, he has a sit down. It's quite fun.
Is he the prop that got stuck in a swing?
No, that was Corey Domachowski.
I think
the other third of the on the front row, who aren't quite as intimidating to some teams as the Pontypool front row, but I still love them.
I'm being harsh on Ancelotti. I'm only in jest, but yeah. Look, we got to be positive, right? If you don't laugh, you cry, and it's the optimism that will kill you. You know, coming from a Dragons perspective this season, I was like, oh yeah, we're going to make the playoffs. Well, we're in the relegation zone. I know there's no relegation, but you know what I mean. We're fighting it
Well, I mean,
at the foot of the table.
we're in a sort of a relegation.
Well, we
We're
are in sort of a
relegation of our
relegation
World
battle.
Cup
Yeah,
tier.
yeah, absolutely. So for me, there's a lot of positivity around this squad. I think there is some exciting talent within it, some young talent. We've mentioned the likes of the possibility of King James got the option to play for Wales. Tuipulotu Pascal the option to play for Wales. Those both got high ceilings. We mentioned Carrington at Bristol clearly got a high ceiling. Maybe I agree with Nick that he's got to do a little bit more. Jack Walsh could become Welsh qualified soon. That's only that's only a good thing for me personally. There are some green shoots on there. There are some green shoots. We just need to think good thoughts. Positive. What did Del Boy used to say? Positive PMA rodders, positive mental attitude. Come on, we can do it.
I think that's an ideal time to stop, Ali.
Yeah, I think
Before
I
reality
think you've
kicks
got
in.
Dan's message of hope. We will put up a nice graphic of our team. Are we happy just having a squad of 41? Or we'll just say Bowen's in as a training player?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we can add Gareth Edwards, Barry John, and Bobby Windsor, and a few others as well if you want to. I don't
Yeah,
mind.
we'll stick Alex Calendar in there just for, try celebration
I was
lessons.
thinking
I
of
don't
just
know.
adding some physicality to the pack, but there we go.
Yeah, that too.
I mean, my thing of positivity, I think the biggest issue I think we've had with successive Wales teams for a while is balancing that pack and getting enough ball carriers, which is why we've always had to resort to having big lumps of 12 and 13.
Mm.
If we can solve that, I think we can cause teams problems. I don't think we'll be able to get 4 out of 4. I think 2 out of 4 would be a good autumn if we can get Argentina and Japan. I think beating Japan's a non-negotiable. I think it's just
Argentina
we all
playing a
might as
game
well.
before us.
I do not know. I don't think so.
I don't think they are.
I'm hoping they do because I imagine you'll think the same as me, Hattie, which is where they always go big on that first game of the campaign.
And then for some reason, the second game, they're so impressed with the fact they managed to win a first game that they just forget to play in the second game, which is how we beat them a couple of years ago.
Hey, look, I'm positive. We're going to be positive. We're not going to win the New Zealand and the Springboks game, but you've got to be looking at performance. Come on, this is a tough year for Welsh rugby. Let's look at the silver cloud, the silver lining of every cloud this season. We can be doom and gloom. Of course we can. It's easy to be, but we got to look at the positives.
The realist me is saying we are not going to have a fully functioning defence and attack. I just think it's too short a time for that.
Oh, Harley, this is the opposite of positive. Come on.
Yeah, well, this is what you get. But what I do want to see is I think if we can see a direction and every game, everything gets a little bit better, I'd be happy. If we get to that Springbok game and we're in, as to steal your phrase, Dan, we go out on our shields, I'd be happy with that. I'll be happy if we can see what we're trying to do. And things that, if passes are going to go, not going to go quite to hand, fine. But I mean, look, particularly like Jockey, if you look at his attack, it's taken him the best part of 3 seasons to get it as slick as it has, because it's complicated. Defensive systems can. Hopefully, there won't be too much ripping up the playbook and bringing it through. I'm positive we'll see something good in Welsh rugby. My only real pessimistic note is how are the Welsh Rugby Union going to completely tank all the good vibes?
Not positivity. Come on. We need improvement, attitude, and identity. We get those 3 things. I'll be happy going into the new year.
And Dan is available for chats as well. So
absolutely.
If you need motivational speaker, Dan's your man.
Absolutely. Let's get it done. Come on, the boys.
Dan Jermaine, now he plays the Scarlets. So I had to get that last one in. Right. Before my head goes proper Fruit Loop. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you guys for joining me. And my brain has actually just fried whilst we were recording, which is always a good place to be. On that note, no star.
That was RAP, the Welsh Regional Rugby Appreciation Podcast. Please rate, review and share us on socials if you can, and join us again next week for more of the same. And until then, enjoy your rugby.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.